You're listening to NFT365, the first daily podcast on NFTs with your host, Fanzo.
Well, welcome back to another episode of NFT365. You know, we got a lot of amazing feedback for the last couple episodes, especially, we did the live recording from Social Media Marketing World, which was one of the presentations that I gave. And then we did the kind of event review episode with some special guests that we had on the podcast. And just wanted to say shout out to all of those that shared some feedback in our Discord, on Twitter, had some tags over there on Instagram stories. But actually, one of the kind of things that came out of it were people really loved kind of hearing how I'm delivering my presentations to the audience. And for most know that I'm a full-time keynote speaker. I pre-pandemic I was speaking at about 65 events a year on a wide range of topics. Of course, right now the topics definitely seem to fall into either Web3 or NFTs, or what role does pressing the damn button and personal branding kind of play in this whole arena. And so one of the things that I got some feedback from is like, we would love to hear the Q&A or what people say to you after you get off stage. And I'll just say, like, if there's events out there that, want to bring me to an event, I would love to do like a 15-minute presentation and a 45-minute Q&A. Or really, I would even love to make it like a prerequisite. Tell people, like, you have to watch this YouTube video of Brian presenting, but then he's going to do a full 60-minute Q&A with everybody in the audience. And I'm pretty good. I take pride in myself of bring questions out of people. And then even if I only see like one person raising their hand, I know that in the answer to that, whatever question that is, I need to cover things or mention things that I believe will spark people to additionally answer questions. So with that being said, the last couple events, I actually, when someone's asking a question that kind of, either I haven't heard before or a question that kind of, gets me, I'm like, oh, wow, that's an interesting take. I try my best to kind of write them down into my notes here on my iPhone. So for this episode, I want to kind of bring some of those, questions, and, I will just set the stage. One of the things that's really surprised me from events, I know, just from surveying events, that a lot of the people in the audience have never bought an NFT before. Maybe they're, interested about NFTs. Maybe they're, curious more about what NFT roles have, and they come to my session. And, the thing, if you would have had to ask me, a couple months ago, what would be the questions people are going to be asking when I get off stage, I actually thought it was going to be things like, what is the first NFT I should buy, or how much money should I put into my wallet to buy my first NFT, or even what kind of wallet should I buy? Are there multiple different ones? But surprisingly enough, that's actually not part of the questions. It's surprisingly, and I think it's also the way I frame it, right? I really try to frame NFTs not just in PFP projects, not just art one-of-one projects, not just projects that we kind of see trending. But I also talk about, everything from, NFTs being used for days off and loyalty programs, and, NFTs to, empower a community, or NFTs to kind of take your Facebook group or membership site to the next level. And so with that being said, I'm going to pull up some of the questions that we've received recently. And I'll tell you, when I was kind of looking at this for this episode, and Drew and I were kind of having the conversation, a lot of the questions, I just love being able to talk to different industries, and I'll put this out there, and I would love anyone to challenge me on it. You can message me on any of the social platforms. I am iSocialFanz, the letter I, social, F-A-N-Z, or a Z at the end. But here's my challenge is I believe every single industry, every single vertical will benefit and can leverage NFTs today. And if your industry or if your vertical you believe is one that could not do that, I recommend you tagging me, challenging me, giving me a little context about the industry or about the place, and I will reply back with either a use case, an example, or I will say you are right and I was wrong. But at the moment, I believe that every single industry, every single group will really leverage NFTs in some unique ways. But so here's some of the questions that we've been receiving. So one of them is that, the premise is often in this way. Since my industry isn't really into NFTs, or they'll say, since my industry is full of a bunch of old people, or since my industry is a regulated industry, or since my industry is still stuck in figuring out if social media is of value, they say, I see the power in NFTs, but I need to know where I should start, because I know I need to start right away, because I want to be the first one in my industry to be, deploying NFTs. This question scares me a little bit, honestly, because not only is this space new and always, moving, but if you're trying to deploy something because you believe you have to do it right away, I believe you oftentimes are going to make decisions that aren't going to be beneficial for long-term success. So I will say, what I've been putting kind of, the caveat of the way that I've been answering this type of question is I will say things like, okay, well, the thing that, I'm curious about it, are you a creator, are you a collector of NFTs? And I would say majority of the time they'll say no, or they'll say no, but I know enough about them, or I have a wallet because I'm into crypto, or no, but I have a Coinbase account, in that context. And I'm gonna probably, maybe die on this hill, but I really do believe before you create any NFT collection of any sort, you should at least collect 1 or 2 or 3 NFTs just to get an idea of like that entire experience. Because for me, the experience of like, what does it feel to mint? What does it feel to have it show up on OpenSea? How does that all go down? A lot of that is really required to understand the nuances of this space. But I will say I don't try to default to that kind of opting out of the question. But what I will tell them is like, I believe the first place you should start is you should start, kind of looking at other examples of NFTs that you think might relate or connect to what your industry example is. For example, I remember one of the companies coming up to me afterwards and saying that they specialize in exotic plants. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that was even a thing. And they were like, yeah, they have exotic plants overseas in different places, and people pay them to take those plants from wherever they're at and bring them to their house or the location, and people are reserving these plants ahead of time, and these are trees and plants and things outside the house, and they were like, it's a very much word of mouth, rewards based experience and industry. And I was like, oh, okay, now that's a great example. And so what I always kind of say from a start perspective is like, okay, let's find other NFTs that right now are being deployed in a way that is either a high ticket item or in not a high frequency of items. And then I ask things like, okay, what would be the utility of the NFT? For me holding the NFT, what would I get? And I will tell you, usually what happens at the end of this question is people go, wow, I think I realized that there's a lot more things that I need to iron out, and I probably do need to collect an NFT before I go any further. So that's kind of where that usually goes. The next question that we've been getting actually a lot more recently was really around this idea of like, how is corporate culture or enterprise culture or businesses, kind of being looked at in this NFT space? And, even got one this week where someone said, should I just, launch it as if it's a project, even though it's going to be attached to my business? And I think that's coming from the idea that, we understand that a lot of brands have come in here and not favored very well. And even, athletes and celebrities, for the most part, there's been a lot of, things that just haven't been done exactly right by brands or by some of those that carry the kind of like that heavy weight into the space. I'm pretty sure that's where that question is kind of coming from. But I think in a bigger picture of this, I actually love that question is being asked, because we know that, NFTs as a whole, there is a kind of a subculture, a crypto culture arena around NFTs. And it is important to not come in and just say, GM everybody, or all of a sudden have a Twitter account and the next day say I'm launching, the first time you use a hashtag, I'm launching an NFT collection, right? With that, and here's where I believe the goal of this answer to this question should be, is that we need to do everything in our power to not make something appear, even if it isn't, as a money grab. And so oftentimes it'll feel as like the haves are coming to monetize and take advantage of the have-nots. So actually one of the things I advise and recommend is, if you are launching a collection from a brand or a business or a corporate side of the house, either knowing that you're going to focus on your existing client base and educating them as your first clients, or doing a way where you're going to give away a certain amount of NFTs to start out, right? So if you want to, create a fairly large collection, why not do a way of saying like everyone who buys this or everyone that's bought this over the last 30 days, they're going to go into a raffle to be able to 500 of you will be able to mint this NFT for free. Because what that does is it takes away those people's kind of hesitation of like, oh my goodness, they're in it for a money grab. And the other thing that does is it gives you now a chance to kind of test out your messaging with the first 500 people that got your NFT for free. The last part of that is what it does, and this is what I will stress, is that please, please, please do not airdrop or give an NFT for free that has no value. Nobody is looking for a brand or a corporate entity to give them a participation trophy. And that is what it will feel like. And I feel like every brand or business or even regular collection that is airdropping a useless NFT actually does more harm to the industry and to the users than they do good. And that utility can be basic. It can be, hey, those who have this one get one free access into this, or anyone who has that utility will be able to, mint first in the next collection and will be able to join this Zoom call on video. Whatever it may be, there needs to be something connected to the fact that if you are holding this, you'd get this, right? Like if this, then that, right? That's how you have to think about this. And in some cases, it should be a couple of things, right? If this, then that, and that, and that. But that would be the way that I would kind of tackle that one. The next one says, I've been getting this question a lot on saying like, Brian, I love your examples of NFTs being used within businesses, being used within kind of a B2B experience. But why aren't they hearing about those type of NFTs outside of an NFT conference? And I just think the answer to that is, I think a lot of B2B events, B2B conferences, and even B2B brands haven't found the people that they should be, hiring or working with that can ultimately provide, the kind of context support to actually implement this, right? Because a lot of the agencies that are supporting brand or corporate or B2B, marketing, I believe a lot of them, if not all of them, most of them are not truly, adapted to what the NFT culture looks like. Now, I will say we've been recently hired by a couple agencies that said, hey, we have this client that we've been working with for many years and they want to launch an NFT project, or they have an NFT project in the works and we'd love to bring you in, to consult or to educate or to advise. And I, of course, love, those opportunities, but I still feel like, part of this is because we're early. And then there's the other part of this is that, there is crypto, there is risk. We've also seen, so many brands, even large B2C brands like Bud Light, kind of missed the mark when they did their NFT drop. And so I think there's definitely hesitation, but that's also just a reminder to everybody listening that we are early. We are really, really, damn early. The next question that I've been getting a lot is, how the hell are you doing a daily podcast? And I usually laugh, and they're like, it's usually like a compliment about that concept. And I tell them that, when we started, of course, we didn't, we were like, okay, we're going to take this on. But as it's kind of grown and kind of taken on a world of its own, and that's thanks to so many of you that listen and share it out on your social, those that want to, if you're looking to help the podcast or support the podcast, we'd love for you to share it out on your favorite social network, and make sure you tag us as well so we can comment and share it, and thank you for doing that. But we also talk about the team, right? For me, the team is a big piece of this, right? I know now for sure there would be no way for me to do a daily podcast that also includes a daily blog, a daily video on YouTube. It also includes a very hyperactive Discord, and I say hyperactive as a positive thing, as well as the fact I'm buying an NFT every single day. There is no way I would not be able to do that with a team. And honestly, I don't believe I would even be able to do that with two people. as what we kind of started. And, I do all of the, I from editing, like there are some variables that I still control because it's just who I am. And, I'm actually recording this one in a hotel room right now because I am on the road. And that's just another example, right? Like as I'm, speaking at more events, my ability to have to be able to, record podcasts on the road and even sometimes record ahead of time, which I haven't done a lot lately, just mainly because a lot of these topics are timely and this space does change a lot. But it's definitely without question the team. It's the team aspect, right? The next question I get fairly often is, Brian, you're buying an NFT every single day. Like that is the coolest project ever. Like, how are you finding NFTs and how much does all of that cost, right? There definitely is something about that. And I usually just, kind of set the stage on telling them about like, okay, this is, the parameters that we put in place for this NFT collection, right? We're buying one in the mint phase. We minted across 10 blockchains. And that to me, kind of setting that arena. And then I also explain, when we launched the podcast and the buying an NFT every day, when Drew and I were sitting on the train, we were estimating what would it cost, at 365 days of doing this. And I think we were ballparking, at the time, a lot of mints kind of ranged between $200 US and $380. That's kind of, we were kind of like, okay, it's about 200 to 380. And we know that there'll be some exceptions to that where we will, have to mint a little bit higher. And then we also knew like things like Solana, sometimes we could mint one for $98 or $100, or even like the Matrix NFT that we bought, which was exactly $100. But I will tell you the trend that started kind of around Christmas and it just kind of continued on is that a lot of projects are minting at a much higher cost to get in. And with the emergence of whitelists, and then if you're not on the whitelist, the project's selling out, and we're then having to buy it, kind of on secondary pre-reveal at a premium. Sometimes, a project that's minting at 0.09 Ethereum, when it mints out faster than I can get it, and then I have to buy it on OpenSea right away, that'll often cost me 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 Ethereum to purchase it. And so we are definitely, I would say the average is much higher than we kind of ballparked. But the beauty of that is I also think that adds to the culture and the vibe. And how do we, we don't know that, maybe the next month the trend kind of goes the other way and people realize that maybe we'll mint for a lower price. But I'm not going to predict that one very much. I know how money works and I know how people see that, oh, this project sold out at, 0.1 or 0.3 or whatever that may be. And I believe the highest we've paid for an NFT, I know we've minted multiple at 0.3 Ethereum. I do believe we minted one at 0.7 Ethereum. I'm going to have to go back and I'll verify that and confirm that on a future episode. But that's one of the questions we get as well. The next question that we get kind of off stage side of the stage when I'm speaking is, the fun question of, well, Brian, you're buying all these NFTs. Like, what's your favorite NFT? Or they'll say, like, what's the best NFT that you've minted for the collection? And I love this question just because for me, I think the easy way to answer this, and you might be able to tell just even by this podcast episode, for me, answering questions side of stage, outside of stage is not really, it's not for me about the Q&A. It's actually more about the idea that this person, I have their attention, they have my attention, and I need not to convince them to see the light, but I need to like read and understand, like when they're asking that, are they asking it, solely for the question, or is there something they're not saying, like almost reading what they're not saying? And I think a lot of times people ask that because they want to go see if they can buy that same project, right? I've heard people say that, like, oh, well, can I jump in that one then? And, oftentimes, depending on the project, sometimes the floor price is out of control, and I would say probably not. That's probably not a good one to jump into. But I also, kind of connect the dots that I tell them that, in many of the projects that that I am now, I would say are my favorites. They weren't my favorite when I minted them. Like they weren't like, oh my gosh, this project is the project. The community, the utility, the energy, the art, eventually either grew on me or I came, kind of fell in love with it. And I openly admit I have an emotional attachment to a lot of the art and the NFTs, because I often try to work to find one that represents me, that I feel like no matter what the art or the background, if it's a female, if it's a male, if it's a robot, if it's an animal, one that kind of connects with me deeper. But, I think when someone asks, like, what is, the NFT that I think I'm bullish on the most is Psychedelics Anonymous, which is a project that I minted from the beginning back in, I believe it was the first week of November when they originally minted. And I just believe they're building a really cool and unique culture to the project and what they have going on. And then I also throw in ones that, like Crypto Chicks is also, of course, a project that I love. I think a lot of that has to do with just being able to interview M here on the podcast, and then kind of going on the journey that she's gone through as well with Maddie and that team. And I also love that there's some of the listeners here on the podcast that became fans of Crypto Chicks because they listened to it and now are appointed to the social council or the council of that project. Like, I just really love that aspect. And then the last one I always throw out there from a standpoint of just, projects that I just have a connection with and that I've always just really been a fan of, from the start is the fact that, I like projects that I just believe in, the founders, and it doesn't matter to me, any of the other pieces of that. And that would definitely be, the Meta Whips from West Coast Customs. And, it's a project that's still in the mint phase. You can mint one still to this day. We had them on the podcast. I just believe they're doing everything right. They also gave me my first one of one, which is my Jeep Wrangler as an NFT. But I just look at that project as like the example of, it kind of goes twofold. Even if you're doing everything right, which I believe they are, it's not sold out. It hasn't all of a sudden blown up. And for many cases, that's still surprising to me. But also their commitment to still deliver and still be active in this community and still want this project to succeed even just makes me a little bit more bullish on that. So I throw that out there. All right, we have two more. The other questions we've been getting is I jumped into NFTs and I bought, and they'll usually put like the name of it. And they're like, I found out later it was a rug pull. And they're like, did you get into this one too? And like, how do you deal with rug pulls? That's usually one. And I will say, much like the word alpha, which I talked about in yesterday's episode, the word rug pull is thrown around and used in examples that is like everything is a rug pull, right? A project that all of a sudden the floor price dips, half as much as it was a month ago. People are like, oh, that's a rug pull. A project that, never actually reveals the art. People call that a rug pull. A project that minted 4 months ago and was building and building and building and then slowly went silent and then refer to that as a rug pull. And I often kind of try to avoid just kind of jumping into that answer because, for me, the true rug pull is the idea that you are, it is done, either with malicious intent or the intent of never actually delivering anything. Like, they are really pulling the rug out for people. And that could happen on the day of mint. It could happen the day of reveal. It could happen the early couple weeks. But if a project's been around for a while and then they kind of start to give up on the project, I don't think of that as much as a rug pull. I just, we could call it a slow rug. But I think that is a big sign of a lot of projects don't have business plans. A lot of projects don't understand how to really foster a community or hire the right people, in their teams. And then if a project, if the price is dipping and people, aren't as active or interested in the project, that's just kind of human nature in many ways, right? I don't look at that as like kind of that same piece. And then the other thing I will say is that every single time that someone says that, and I recommend this for everyone, is I always say, well, don't worry, you're not alone. I've bought into a rug pull or more than one rug pull myself, because that is something that is essential, right? We need to make sure that people do not feel as though they are alone or they were, an idiot for buying squiggles or whatever, that project might be. But we can all be duped, and sometimes we're duped because we just saw something on Instagram on, the ridiculous @NFT account that Mark Cuban was financing, and didn't believe that, if this is the best account on, or the most followed account on Instagram, apparently they know what they're doing, and we all know that the story on that is no, they were just getting paid ridiculous amounts of money to hawk and promote everything and anything under the sun, with really no care about what the results of those projects were. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people kind of feel that way. And so I usually kind of put that in there. And then the last thing I always tell people is just be aware of where you're getting your information from, right? If that 19-year-old kid in his parents' basement is doing TikToks and telling you, this is the project that is going to make you a millionaire, let's put on context. If he knew the project was going to make a millionaire, he probably wouldn't be living in his parents' basement and doing random, 500 TikToks a day. Just going to put that out there. So I think that's an important piece to kind of cover off on as well. And then the last, one I would say from a standpoint of the idea of the questions people ask, it really comes down to the wallet conversation. And it's more like, well, Brian, I don't really know what NFT I want, but should I get a wallet first? Or they'll say, Brian, hey, do I need to get a wallet to get some of that ADHD coin? I want to support you. Or even they'll say hey, I have this event got me an NFT, or I went to a Steelers football game and they said they got me an NFT, but where do I find it? Right? That was always what wallet is it in? And I think the beauty of that question, and the reason I made that one the last one of this episode, just kind of covering that, is that it is a reminder and it is proof. And it is also something that we have to not take for granted, that a lot of the mechanics around, participation in this space are not things that most people have done or are doing. Even people that have bought crypto, a lot of them simply did it on Robinhood app, right? And I won't get into Robinhood app and the nuances there, but let's just say it that Robinhood app doesn't make it easy to buy, or doesn't make it possible for you to take that crypto you've bought and turn it into buying NFTs on the main net with other projects, right? Or people will say I signed up for Coinbase because someone told me to buy, Dogecoin because, Elon Musk was pumping it or whatever it may be. And I really think of this as this is where I usually go with the answer to this question is I always say, well, I'm not going to pump my own bags or promote my own thing, but I'm just going to tell you that we have a lot of great episodes on our podcast that walk through, what is the things that you need to get started in NFTs? What are the different wallets? What are the exchange? How do you protect yourself? What is the security realm? And I really do take pride of that here on the podcast, that we do try to cover a lot of those nuances, and we're going to continue to do it. There'll be future episodes where we're going to go, deeper into, hardware wallets. Brian, if everything's on my hardware wallet and I lose my hardware wallet, what happens then? And the answer is, as long as you have your seed phrase, you're okay. And we'll kind of cover that in the future. But, those are the kind of the questions that we get. I will say, kind of what I kicked off with is I have been, pleasantly surprised, or maybe not even pleasantly, because I don't think it was a bad thing or a good thing, but there are a majority of people when they see or think about NFTs and they get that aha moment in the audience when I'm speaking on stages, their first place they want to play is creating their own collection. I will say the people that are following me on Twitter Spaces or listening to me on this podcast, and most people that are in our Discord that jump over and say, hey, I found you in the podcast, a majority of them are actually saying what's the first NFT I should buy? Or, Brian, what's the best website to find upcoming NFTs? And so I don't really know directly what that nuance is. What is that difference between someone kind of, feel maybe, and it could be even that people don't know the questions to ask as a collector since they've never been a collector, but they have been a creator of content, creator of products, creator of services. And so maybe it's easier to ask questions post-event or even when I'm on stage about, it from that perspective or that viewpoint. But definitely something just to kind of factor in. And I'll be sharing more, in our Discord for sure. After I get done for events, I think we're going to take a little, we're already talking about ways that, I want to be able to record some of the Q&A that we have so we can share it back with everyone. Because I do believe, knowing what questions others are asking, also either they ask the questions you want to ask, or my favorite thing is they ask questions that I didn't know should be asked. And then once I hear them answered, it kind of helps me out along the way. And so I do want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for, listening to the podcast. Thank you for, kind of coming on us, on this journey with us. I will say I would love for you to hit subscribe. It doesn't matter what app you're listening to this on. It could be any of the apps. I think there's 84 apps total that are currently at the moment part of the podcast ecosystem. But whichever app you are, listening to, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss, any of our future episodes, and that will be much appreciated. And until tomorrow, my friends, make it a great day. Cheers.